Welcome back to another video, and today, I want to talk about some very basic stuff when it comes to multiplayer replications in order to create multiplayer games. The first thing that I want to mention is that it's a really good idea to first learn how to create a single player game before you jump into multiplayer, so that you would know how to add characters' health, reduce it, pick up items, do whatever tasks you might want to perform in your game, so that you would know how they should work, and then you can try to replicate those across the network, because if you don't know how to make like these single player features, it might be a little bit harder for you to make them into the multiplayer system, because then you might not know whether the issue lies in the basic single player system itself, or maybe you have missed something in the multiplayer side of things. The first things to keep in mind of is, first, how do you even test your multiplayer? So if you would go next to the play button is a drop down menu, this one right here. What you want to do is, I prefer testing on 3 players, because if we change, we need to change the net mode to be as a listed server in order to test these things in the editor. And I prefer testing between 2 clients, because the first player is always going to be the server. Now, if we press play, by default the server is going to be in the middle, and then you're going to have 2 more windows of your characters on your client, but I prefer to do this in a new editor window. One is for the server. You can see in the middle of the screen it says net mode server, then we have the client 1 and we have the client 2. Often, most of the things will work just fine on the server. It's very easy to make things work on the server. It's a little bit harder when it comes to client connections, because what you need to remember is that in reality, all the game, everything is happening on the server, and the clients who join just simply receive a pawn from the server that the server allows them to control something in a character in the server, and everybody else kind of sees like a video. It's not really a video, but you just simply are controlling something on the server, and then server sends you back the data. If you have played shooters before, and if you had lag, you might notice that maybe you run like forward, and then all of a sudden you just freeze and snap back. That is because the server didn't receive that input that you walk like this 1 meter, and it thinks you are still here, and then that's why in your screen you are constantly getting thrown backwards. Now, so that is the very basics how to open and test the multiplayer in the editor. Now, the next thing would be, you need to remember that there are a couple of properties that needs to be checked in order for things to work in multiplayer. So for this one, I'm gonna create a new blueprint class. I'm gonna create a regular actor, and let's call this spawned actor for now. That's just gonna be testing so that we can actually spawn it. Now, the first thing is, in your class defaults, if you wanna make that this actor is used in a multiplayer environment, when you wanna spawn it, and when you want to make changes for it, if it's going to stay there static and it's going to be there right at the beginning, so if you just drag it in, it's all good. You don't need to replicate it if you don't really plan on interacting with it. If it's like an environment thing that's not going to be interactable with, if it's just going to stay there and it's not going to move, then you can use the actor by default. If you want to change its properties, any variables, visuals, positions, or spawn during the gameplay, then you want to go to the class defaults of that specific actor, and on the right side we have the replication properties. So you always will want to click on this replicates and make this true. Now, if the actor is movable, then you want to replicate the movement itself as well. Now, if you want to make any changes to the components inside of this actor, then you must select this component, scroll down so you see the component replication, and check on component replicates. Now, I will want to spawn this thing, change its mesh, and do some more changes to this actor during the gameplay. So for now, I'm just going to add a static mesh, and I'm going to make this into a cube. I'm going to enable its physics, change the mass a little bit, and make sure to replicate this component as well. So there we go. Now we have technically a fully replicated actor available to us. Later I'm going to get to physics replication as well, because by default the regular actor is acting a little bit odd. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Now let's go to our character. Now, I talked about replicating the actors themselves with the default characters. You don't have to worry about anything, because if you go to the class defaults, you can already see that the actor itself is replicated by default and its movement is replicated as well. That's why you can see that when the characters are running around, you can see where they are, how they are running, and seeing their animations as well. Now let's set up a basic system how we can spawn actors. So in the single player, it's pretty much the same thing. There's going to be a slight change. So we want to spawn an actor from the class. Our class in this case is our spawned actor. For the transform, well, I'm going to do this very simple. I'm going to get the actor location. So I'm going to get the character's location, and I'm just going to simply add some units to the x-axis so that it essentially spawns next to me. Doesn't matter really the location. Obviously, for an actual game, you will want to specify a location, but well, that's going to depend on the game itself. I'm going to be using the keyboard key 1, so keyboard 1 is going to spawn the actor, but in order to make this run on multiplayer, if we do it like this, well, only the server is going to see it. Actually, only the character who spawns it is going to see it, and nobody else is really going to see it. If you would spawn this as a server character, then everybody will be able to collide with that, so they ain't going to be able to walk through that position, because the cube is going to be there and it's going to interact with the physics. Now, to make this work, what you want to do is create a new custom event, and I'm going to call this server spawn actor. And you're going to make sure that this event right here is ran on server. Then you can plug that into your spawn actor from class, and from the keyboard key 1 pressed, then we want to launch our server spawn actor. And that is as simple as it gets. Now, whenever you spawn an actor, it's going to do everything like it should. Everybody's going to see this object. Now, I want to set up another event, so I'm going to do a keyboard key 2 as well, and I'm going to do a very basic line trace. So line trace by a channel, and then on this one, what we want to do is get the start and end positions. So for that, I'm going to create a custom event, and let's call this server line trace. Now let's plug this in, and what I will do is connect the start and end positions to this one, so that the client would get the start and end positions, and then the server will do the line trace. I'm going to change the trace channel to be the camera. I'm going to make sure that this event is ran on server, and everything else will be like it usually is. So we're going to check if something got hit, and then we're going to break the hit result, get the hit actor's data, and we are going to destroy that actor that we have hit. So we can connect to true. There we go. Just be careful not to aim at your floor, because if you're going to aim at your floor, everybody's going to fall through it, because, well, the floor is going to get destroyed. Now on keyboard key 2, what I want to do is run our server line trace. And for the start and end positions, well, I'm going to get the follow camera. I'm going to get the world location of the camera. I'm also going to get the forward vector itself as well. And we're going to multiply the forward vector to shoot a direct line times integer, not a vector. So let's say like 1,000 units should be all right. So the world location is the start, and world location plus the forward vector is going to be our end position. So very basic line trace, probably already seen in my videos 1,000 times. Now let's give it a go. So let's press play. And well, like I said, I want to test things out usually on the clients. So I'm going to spawn an object. Here we go. The objects are getting spawned. And as you can see, well, they are acting very odd, and that is because of the physics. There you go. You can see because of the physics, these objects, see, we are seeing objects that actually aren't even there. And this issue is happening, I believe, because it's a regular actor. I know some people have commented before that, oh, you can replicate regular actors as well. Why do you use those specific types all the time? Well, these are the issues. Why? As you can see, well, it's glitching out quite bad. And this issue happens because they have physics enabled. Now, if we would disable the physics for this specific actor, then you will see that whenever we spawn it, there we go. Everybody can see its location just fine, and it does work exactly the way it should. Now let's try to destroy it. So with keyboard key 2, I'm going to aim at the cube. There we go. Everybody can see these cubes getting destroyed, and this is fully replicated. Now the issues are happening with the physics. If somebody has any idea why this is happening exactly, because I am replicating the movement and everything, etc., and it's giving me these weird issues with the physics. If let's say you spawn the cube in the position it does show up, and you move it around, collide with it a lot, and it's jumping all over the map, after a certain period of time the movement is gonna desync. So for one client it's gonna appear in one position, and for the other one it might be in a different position. Now what I do in order to fix this, to make this physics simulate properly, is simply change the actors type. So this is why I'm usually in my tutorials using specific actor types like static mesh actors, skeletal mesh actors, destructible actors, instead of just regular actors. So I'm going to change the parent class in the class settings to be the static mesh actor instead. There we go. Now I'm going to remove this extra cube, it's not needed. I'm going to set the static mesh component to be our cube. Make sure that it is movable and that we simulate the physics, and we also replicate the component itself as well. And now if we give it another go, so we press 1, there we go, everybody can instantly see it, and it is getting spawned in the correct positions. There we go, right off the bat, and the physics are working perfectly. They don't really glitch out, at least I haven't noticed them glitch out. Maybe eventually they do, but I don't think so, because, well, I haven't seen any issues when I'm using specific actor types. There we go. So those are the very basics how to spawn and destroy actor. All we gotta do is make sure that all the components and the actor itself is replicated, and that the event which handles the task is ran on server. Now for the variables, it's exactly the same thing. Let's see. So let's add a new variable. Let's call this health. Let's make sure that this variable is replicated. So replication, replicated. And then I'm going to use a float value for health. And what you want to do is, again, create a custom event. And let's call this server add health. We can actually use this both ways as well. So if we would run this on server now, and we would set our health, and we can do that by, let's get the current health, and let's do health minus float is this value, and well, we can provide this from the server side. So this would be the value that we provide that needs to be removed. Well, we want to add, so let's actually do a plus instead of a minus. But if you will provide a negative value over here, well, then it's going to remove it. And so basically this function can be used both ways. You can add health and you can reduce health as well. Now I'm going to disconnect this thing on keyboard key 1. And what I will simply do is run the event called add server add health. Then I'm going to provide a value. This node is going to glitch out because of the B route, so we can right click, refresh the node, change its value. There we go. Let's say we want to add like 15 health. Now on keyboard key 2, what I will actually do is get the health value and display it. So I'm going to, from the hit actor, I'm going to cast to the third person character, not game mode. So cast to the third person character, connect this, then I'm gonna get the health value, and I'm just gonna simply print it out so that, well, we can see that everybody is notified about how much health that specific actor has. So again, make sure the event is ran on server and that the variable itself is also replicated. There we go. So now if we would press play again, let's test it from both of the clients. So let's shoot 2. See, it says it has 0 health. Now if we press 1 a couple of times, then this guy will see that he has 60 health. Now let's press 1 a bunch of more times on this client, and you can see it says 195. We can walk up to this guy, it also says 195 and 60. So this one should have 0 and this one should have 60. There we go, exactly. So now our health is also replicated, and all the other clients already know what health each character has. So this is very simple, how to set up variables for the multiplayer environment. Next, well, we have another event which is not ran on server, which is multicasted. So I still want to spawn my actor, so I'm gonna do that. But instead of destroying the actor on keyboard key 2, well, let's change its mesh. So I'm gonna cast to our spawned actor instead. There we go. We're gonna cast to our spawned actor instead. We are going to get the static mesh component, and then for this we are going to set the static mesh. We're going to change our static mesh to be, let's change it to be the material sphere. There we go. And then once we have set our static mesh, what I want to do is also change the material. So we can set the material. Let's set the material, and let's just simply select any material we want. And we're just going to use like this brick clay thing over here. So let's press play and let's see how this works. So now we can spawn this with one client and let's change it with another one. So you can see we changed the shape, but well, we don't see the material. But the server does see the material, but nobody else really sees it. Well, that is happening because, well, we can't really change the materials. This is a very inconsistent part about Unreal Engine 4 replication that I don't fully understand exactly, because, well, these properties are not really getting changed right here. But we can still change those by creating another custom event, and we can multicast this. So I'm gonna call this multi-change mat. Then we can multicast. Replication settings would be multicast for this event. We can connect the execution, connect the target. The target is a primitive component, exactly like it needs to be. And then at the end, when we set the static mesh on the server side, then we can run our multi-change material. And for the bottom target, let's provide our static mesh component, or we could also provide the hit component as well. So let's now give it a go with these two events. So we can spawn the actor with one and change it with another one. So now you can see, everybody can see the changes in the static mesh and also the changes in the material as well. There we go. So those are the very basics for replication. You probably always, first I suggest try to run on server, do the whole task on server, and then if something doesn't work exactly like you wanted to, try to do some of the stuff that didn't work on the multicasted event. If the clients don't see the changes, the server probably is going to see the changes, like I said. So that's why it's very important that you test things on two clients instead of testing those on the server. Now let me show you some more changes that we could make. So for example, if we fail to cast to the spawned actor, I want to cast to my third person character. Then use the hit actor as the object reference, and we can do a similar thing. Again, we can get the mesh of the character and we can set the skeletal mesh, and we can, well, I'm using 426, so I have the possibility by default to change my male character to a female character. Then let's do again the multi-change mat, and let's reconnect the target to the mesh like so. So those are the basics. Again, very basic stuff. The same thing, exactly the same thing as we did for our spawned actor. So now let's try this. So if we press 2, you can see the material disappeared. That's a whole nother story. I'm going to show you the reason why. But, well, the character did not change its mesh. But if we go as a server character, we can see the changes have happened. But, well, nobody else can see that this is now a female character. These are some of the inconsistencies that I've found in Unreal Engine 4, because, well, essentially we are doing the same thing, but it doesn't exactly do the same task. In order for us to make this work, what I will do is create another custom event, and I'm going to call this multi-change. Let's call it change actor, even though we're not changing the actor. Let's make sure that this event is multicasted, and then we want to do this whole bunch on the client, on the multicasted event. So let's connect the object. So that is our hit actor, and on cast failed, then we want to run our multi-change actor and connect object to the hit actor. And now once this is multicasted, the whole process, once it's multicasted, now this is going to work. Even though I find this very odd because we are changing the mesh over here as well, but this just simply runs on server. Well, but this one doesn't. So let's give it a go. Let's press play and let's see. So let's try to do this. Press 2. There we go. Now we can see the material. Well, it's trying to change the material, and we can see the female character. And well, you can see everybody can change each other's mesh, and everything seems to be working fine. Now with the material, actually it did work. It did work just fine. The issue isn't in the replication side. We did replicate correctly. This is multicast. We actually don't have to run this multicast. We could have actually done this over here as well. So we can set the material, because well, both of them are multicasted, so both of them will do the same thing. They both come from the same end, so that's gonna work just fine. If we would, let's see, here is the brick clay, so let's select that and then plug that in here. There we go. So this is going to work exactly the same way as this one did for our cube. Now, but for the material, so select it, find it, there it is, open it up, and you need to change one property because this thing is going to glitch out even in the single player. Because if you scroll down, so you find the usage, you gotta click that used with skeletal mesh. Also, if you want to use for instant static meshes, here is a check for that. For spine, for all kinds of things, you gotta check those to enable them to work. Yeah, basically to work. So let's save that. So now that is all good, and let's try it again. So let's press 2, and there we go. You can see the character has its material and mesh changed, and it is fully replicated and fully functioning the way it should. So that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you learned something new. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss on any of these epic videos, and I see you in the next one.